just a little bit about Alex, guys, and correct me if I'm wrong. I had shared with everybody I have some of my interns doing research for me, and so they got a couple of things wrong, but I have noted that you're running for California Assembly in District 25. District 25 serves Milpitas, San Jose, Mountain View.
Not Mountain View, though.
Not Mountain View. Okay. Well, Milpitas and San Jose. I also have it noted that you recently put your body on the line during the activities that have been going on after the assassination of George Floyd. So I just wanted to thank you for putting your body on the line for those of us who really want to see this type of change. As a queer person who's been in cannabis for a long time, I'm super excited to see other young, out and open people stepping up, in particular, especially people of color. So I just want to thank you and congratulate you. Your cat is cute. We'll dive directly into the questions. So like we asked everybody, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then when was that pivotal moment that you knew you were going to come out bold as a proponent of cannabis?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Alex Lee. I'm running for Assembly District 25. So the cities in it are Milpitas, Northern San Jose, Santa Clara, Fremont, and Newark. And if you know anything about this community, it is a community that traditionally has not been known to be very pro-cannabis. And this is largely, and I'm going to say it, comes from the conservative Chinese community. And I am part of that community as a Chinese person, right? And it's kind of the inroads where I have to face a lot of intersectional challenges, right? Because, just because I am of skin of the same community does not mean our values are always similar. And I think it's sometimes a bit more difficult, but more rewarding in some ways having that conversation, right? Coming from someone who understands the culture and understands the language and all that, I think can be very rewarding as well. But also a bit about me is before I ran for the state assembly, I worked for State Assembly Member Evan Lowe, and before that, Senator Henry Stern in the state capitol. So I'm diving right in, having this experience of being in the state legislature in a slightly different regard, like John Laird just kind of talked about, but I was on the staff level behind the scenes. I was that person that did the research for people like John. Now I'm hopefully going to have people helping me do that as well. And if elected in November, I will be the youngest API legislator, Asian Pacific Islander legislator ever at 25, and the first openly bisexual legislator as well. And, going back to why I realized that, having a legal cannabis market is so important is twofold, right? One is growing up, I know everyone basically uses it, right? I personally will always say this to every advocate on the call or I've been talked to is I'm a very anti-drug person personally. I don't even drink coffee, if you believe that. I don't do any of it. And that's kind of my credibility with some people is like, literally, I don't do it. I'm not doing it for myself. Like literally everyone does it. And we are missing on such a opportunity to make it a legal, profitable, for our society, a profitable thing. And I really can realize that, especially after Prop 64, the number, is it 64? 64 passed, and the legislature was really grappling, figuring out, well, now we have this great opportunity. How do we get this to work? And there was a real disconnect between the federal and obviously local level and the state level of how to make it work. And at the end of the day, I think we all have the similar goals: keeping our communities safe, keeping them well-funded and the services well-funded. And we can do that all if we push it into the legal market instead of pushing it into the underground market. So I'm excited to work with everyone, hopefully on this call that you can see me, to really make sure it's successful and really advocate and educate people about what, recreational drug use or medicinal drug use really is. And it's not this hot den of deviancy that a lot of people seem to put a stigma on.
Well, thank you for all of that. Number one, congratulations on congratulations on having work, I think you're working with Evan Lowe right now and his team still, or you're transitioning out of that, but you've had some rock star experience in terms of working with really big game changers, not just for this industry, but just as a whole. So having said that, as a young person, what do you envision in particular for this industry? Where do you see us going? What are some pain points? What can we learn from? How can we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the trajectory is that I think cannabis will become more and more normalized, right? I think it's just the way of the world where more young people or more users will become more active in government, become more active in civic life, and they'll understand that it's not something far away and scary. As a lot of people, I think, or as I would say, the vocal minority of people who are afraid of these things will come to know. I've seen personally more local elected officials who either have personal experience or understand it a lot more and can make smart decisions about it. But really, that's where we're at, right? We're playing the game of undoing decades and decades of the violent war on drugs on people of color and on stigmatizing a lot of people, right? So we're having to play this unlearning game with a lot of our community where, to this day, they're still teaching, basically absence drug education, right? So we have a lot of unlearning to do. But I think as more and more people, I think time will prove that it becomes the common sense thing, and we'll look back on it and we'll say, why did we even do it like this? Why is this so stupid?
So my next question to you is, what are you going to do to help move the needle for our industry?
Yeah, well, definitely one big thing is about public education, right? I think the hardest thing right now to doing any legislation, especially locally, to allow dispensaries or allow any operations in jurisdictions is that opposition locally. And I'm willing to be that kind of voice to help talk to the community and figure it out and try to alleviate and do that kind of education, which we've been trying to do a little bit of it recently. But I'm sure as my cat is just going wild today. I'm sorry about that. So doing more of that education, that outreach with my local elected partners, I think is going to be a huge help because I do believe at the end of the day, state legislation will also be necessary. But as we've kind of proven at the state level and the proposition level, if you can't make it work at the local level, I think all politics is local, right? If you can't make it work at the local level, it's not going to work for our communities, unfortunately. So I'm going to invest a lot of my efforts in the local level.
I appreciate that, and I agree with you 100%, especially when you read the RFPs on the state level, and then you recognize who's actually getting the contracts and the information that they're putting out, in particular regarding education. As somebody who lives in a more conservative area of the Bay Area, what are some of the concerns you're hearing either from colleagues or from constituents, and what solutions have you presented to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the top thing that I hear as a reoccurring theme from either constituents or local electeds is this notion that having cannabis leads to crime or being close to schools innately is a bad thing, right? I always hear the thing, don't have to be close to schools, don't have to be close to these things. And in a lot of my cities, which are relatively small, right, it's almost physically impossible for any sort of establishment to be far away enough from a school. And and it goes back to the education piece, right? Like I have these conversations sometimes. I'll tell you a little bit of a story, right? Like we do a lot of canvassing. I mean, a lot more pre-COVID, but when we just talk about people and they have concerns about cannabis or weed, marijuana, they're like, they say all these bad things that happen, right? It's like, I don't want my kids doing all those things. And I'm like, look, I went to high school in this community 7 years ago, and I already knew a bunch of people that were doing weed before it was legal like that. And so the fact is, and I try to bring up some facts about this, is like, just because we don't allow dispensaries inside our city, in my district, just so you know, I have Northern San Jose, so I basically have all the dispensary or most of the dispensaries of the South Bay. But back to the story is like, I always knew people were doing it. And just because we don't have a dispensary in town doesn't mean your child possibly isn't doing the drugs, right? Like there are real apps online nowadays that you can go to these stores and do all these things. But the point of at the end of the day, it's just our city is losing on the revenue or losing opportunity to regulate this business. They're either seeking legal means that are already readily available to all consumers, or unfortunately, they might be going to the unregulated market, which could be potentially what you fear. They could be more dangerous for your child, could be more dangerous for whatever. And and granted, these are also sometimes talk to parents who are or talk to parents that are similar my age. So when we're talking and they're mentioning their child, they also look at me, who are the similar age range. So I always tell them, right, look, I'm super anti-drug. Like in the perfect world, no one has to do any drugs of any sort, but this is the reality we have, right? And I think it would be smart to adapt to it. Just like how we regulate alcohol and tobacco, we should be allowing the same thing in marijuana, which I would argue is far less dangerous than anything. kind of rambling answer, but
Well, no. Thank you for that answer. I want to go back to one of the questions that was posed earlier from one of our attendees, and it's regarding social equity programs. And so, since you've been working in this field in particular, you know, the statement is social equity programs have been a failure for the most part due to lack of adequate structure. What would you do to ensure cities that offer equity programs are really serving the population that's getting the money from the state?
Yeah. I just want to preface this answer by saying, so as you kind of mentioned in the amazing flattering intro, I have been very vocal and out there with the protests, especially in San Jose after the murder of George Floyd. And now, I mean, even since Monday, right, there has been like 6 people murdered by police, I think in California alone. And this is not a problem that's going away. Racial equity, socioeconomic and racial equity is a fundamental thing that I'm committed to. And it's going to take so much, right? It takes so much effort to, sorry. It's going to take so much effort to really okay, let go. Sorry about that. It takes so much effort to fundamentally reimagine and restructure that we have to be angry and we have to use our voices as much as possible to restructure these things. So in San Jose, instead of having meaningful police reform and accountability, we passed something called the Office of Racial Equity. And this kind of goes to the heart of a lot of frustration from, you know, and I had the privilege of working with so many great young Black and brown organizers, especially in this movement, and they just get so frustrated at things like this, right? My hope is that at the state level of my role, I can redirect the funds, change policy to make things more equitable. But at the end of the day, it's partnership, right? The localities are at the end of the day the people servicing the community. You know, my job is really to pull the resources a lot of the time. I don't get to be, as much as I would like to be, the servicing the people and getting resources to people. Maybe we'll change that. But you know, I'm gonna always be very critical of locals that they just talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. You know, racial equity comes from these bold actions and restructuring and realizing that our system was fundamentally built on unfairness, right? Unfairness based on your sexual orientation, unfairness based on your race, and it's gonna take a whole lot more than saying, well, here's a few dollars to few programs, right? I think in the end of the day, those things are helpful. And I'm going to be doing as much as possible to make sure those get to the organizations and the people that need it most. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of the Band-Aid solution, not the end all be all. And I'm apologizing about my cat. She is not usually this active. It just must be the crowd today that's stimulating her.
She wants to say hi to all of us, and we're completely okay if she says hi to us.
She's usually really good. She is very sleepy in the morning, and now she's like everywhere.
She feels all the energy. There's a lot of people on the call who are really excited to know more about you in particular. One of the questions that I posed to everybody, and you kind of addressed it a little bit, in terms of when will the amount of time and money spent on repair match or surpass the amount of time and money spent on prohibition? You're young. So, I mean, I could be your parent, which I would be proud to be your parent, but it also made me realize I could be your parent. And I say that just because maybe I need a little bit of hope from your generation in particular about really helping us create solutions that we need. So in an ideal world, when will the amount of time and money spent on repair match or surpass the amount of time and money spent on prohibition?
I mean, if we're being idealistic, I would say the prohibition time, right, has been maybe half a century. Let's round it down to that. I think with the way Gen Z, and I'm proud to be an old Gen Zer, is going, we're basically gonna slam our foot on the pedal, and we're gonna go 100 miles an hour as much as possible to undo every historic injustice we can. And I think we can accomplish that realistically within the next half of that time, maybe 20 years, hopefully, because more and more, I think young people are going to step into office, step into roles of nonprofits or even the private sector to have these ideas about restructuring our government. I mean, if anything, this summer has shown us, as tragic as it is, the silver lining is there are tons and tons of good people out there that are willing and ready to use their voice. Perhaps they feel disenfranchised by a system where when they vote, they don't feel anything has changed, or when they appeal to someone, nothing has changed. But, during the global pandemic, millions of people across the country got out of the safety of their homes and said enough was enough. And I think that mentality and that spirit is going to keep alive for a long time. And I think it's the beginning for a lot of people. I have a lot of close friends who are a little younger than me as well, who were actively writing long essays to their city council members. And then they told me about it, and I was like, I'm so proud of you. I did not know you would ever do this. I didn't even know who you didn't know who our mayor was, but they would just, elucidate all their points, right? And these are going to be the next generation of people leading our economy, leading our governments. Even today, I'm proud to be sponsoring a lot of young people that are running for office in my district. A lot of people that had a small glimmer of inspiration from my race. So I had them run for city councils and school boards, and we're going to do it at every level. Fundamentally, we're going to change it. It's going to take a longer time than we want because we're a very impatient generation, which I think is, but for a good reason, because we just inherited so many problems. They're like, how come no one fixed this before us? So now we're got to fix it ourselves, kind of mentality. And I think we can do it. I think change will come quickly and swiftly and justly when all the levers when all the obstacles are starting to be torn down by us. But right now we're in the obstacles of just tearing down these barriers. But once we get in there and we can pass policy and we can make changes, it's going to be incredible, because I think it's going to be so radically inclusive. Yeah, I won't ramble on more. I just have a lot.
No, I loved it. Are you kidding? You gave me some hope. I'm going to get to leave and do the rest of my day with some hope that there are young people who really are going to challenge what we've just accepted for so many years and push us through to a better, brighter future. With that in mind, you talked a lot about young people and the empowerment of young people in particular. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who consume cannabis are a lot of the consumers that a lot of the industry needs. So what are ways do you think that the industry can really utilize that energy that you guys have in particular to help us move things, whether it's taxation, whether it's really pushing for an equitable industry? What are some things that folks that are watching can really do to help inspire and to push their consumers?
I'll just take it kind of at the simplest level. A lot of folks, consumers or not, I'll just put it that young people in general, we have so much energy and desire to change things, but sometimes it just takes that kind of political awakening or the education to make sense. For me, and I've known this for a little longer or a little while as well, cannabis is innately tied to the socioeconomic oppression of people of color in this country, right? It was kind of the, what do you call it? The pretense for going after a lot of people. And I mean, when you show people those Nixon tapes, it is like, it riles people up. They're like, God damn Nixon and all those people, and he said these things, and I can't believe they said these things, right? Because really it's tied. And then how it ties into the larger issue of our criminal justice system, how unfairly and disproportionately impacts especially poor people of color, you start getting really riled up about it. And you see that this is one way to unlock and undo the system by really just bringing it into the market, the legal market where, like I bring up, like alcohol and tobacco are already part of. I think innately you have a lot of people that would be attracted to that kind of message and talk about social justice and how to fix that. And this is one way, right? If you're a consumer, you've got two win-wins, right? It benefits you as a consumer and it benefits you as a member of society and having a more just society. So I think, being more open and talking about this is helpful, because I'm sure there's a lot of folks who my age that don't even understand there's a federal prohibition, and we're kind of operating in this weird gray zone as states right now, and how precarious that is, and how important it is really just to have their local voice, right? So from small things and saying, if there's actions possible, contact your local officials, tell them how you feel about this, tell them it doesn't make you, social deviant and you can't do anything in your life, or things like that, right? Just having real experience. Because right now, I will tell you, a lot of political officials, they hear from a lot of people that don't have direct experience or have bad notions about this industry or about its users especially, I would say. But if they can hear from real people and say, look, I'm a functioning tech worker, I do this, and I just need this to relax, especially during coronavirus. I'm a functioning member of society. I voted 5 out of 5 times. Like, please don't, just do some reasonable things for me. I think that could be very powerful. So political education and using your voice is so important. And I would really urge, especially as operators, to really talk more openly about the environment and political environment you exist in, because it is very, very unique. Not many industries exist like this in California. So it's very fascinating to people. And I think people will be receptive to it.
Another question for you. I know we're waiting. I have you for one more minute. I know we're waiting for Liam to join us, but you had mentioned that you weren't really pro any other drugs, but we have this one broader question that was raised earlier today about for everyone in terms of what are their thoughts on psychedelic legalization, regulation, and research on that in particular. Is that something you're open to? Is that something that the attendees can talk to you about and educate you about as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm certainly open to those things. I only saying it because it's like a personal thing. I don't use these things, but it doesn't mean I am opposed to them on a policy level.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited about your energy. I'm super excited for your area in particular. Like, I'm excited with the notion that, hey, the next time I go to San Jose, there might be this young, amazing leader who's really pushing the area towards progress. So thank you so much, and good luck in November.
Can I say something real quick? Just plugs or stuff. So
Sure.
I really do hope that you'll follow along my journey. I did see in the chat someone did not like that I compared the industry to other industries, so I do apologize for that. It's kind of my more moderate way of phrasing it to people, so I have to, unlearn that as well. So I do apologize to that for the person who said that, who commented that. But I do hope you'll follow on the campaign journey. My social media is @VoteAlexLee on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, it's @VoteAlexLee2020, where I say even more radical stuff. So please do follow us on social media. Please feel free to reach out, even DM me on social media. I'm very open that way. Just like John, I do most of the work myself. So feel free to contact me, reach out. And if you do have ideas about changing our state so it benefits everyone, please do contact me in office as a candidate whenever it works. And I really do enjoy the time you've offered me. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.